Oh, it's at 12 o'clock. So good afternoon and welcome to another installment of our ongoing nonprofit leadership and engagement series. I am Joanne Nazer, Manager of Nonprofit Leadership and Engagement at the Washington County Community Foundation. Thank you for joining us today to learn from our content expert about cybersecurity for nonprofits. Thanks to Kathy Sable from the Washington County Bar Association for supporting this webinar, since it's a law school for nonprofits session as well. It is my pleasure to introduce Leia Shilobod from Compliancy IT, who's an expert on cybersecurity. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to be here today, everybody. So I'm going to cover a lot of content. It was really hard for me to kind of pare all this down. So I want you to bear with me as I fly through a lot of things. But there will be time at the end where you'll be able to ask questions. And if you have something that's burning that you really want to get an answer to or clarification, you can post that. And Joanne promised she would interrupt me to make sure we get everyone's questions answered. So today what we're going to talk about is the number one threat to your organization that things like antiviruses, firewalls, other security tools can't even protect against, and why the traditional methods of cybersecurity are actually useless against the new threats today, and how social media and cloud applications are really jeopardizing security and your data. We're going to talk about some strategies to protect your organization so that you're not a sitting duck to cyber criminals. Because unless we really bring this all to the forefront, we might as well be. So Joanne did give me a really fantastic introduction, but just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea, like, who am I? Why should you even listen to me? I founded my company in 2006. We're a Compliancy IT. We used to be in tech solutions. We've always been a security-focused firm. I speak countrywide on IT security, documentation, IT operations and standards. I also teach other companies like mine across the country how to implement and maintain cybersecurity compliance programs. And I'm also a certified information security manager, which was the most fun test I ever studied for, believe it or not. And when I say that, most people think, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. But the God made people like me for a reason, and it's to do work like this. I also am the author of Cyber Warfare. And then we have a documentary out called Cybercrime, The Dark Web Uncovered. So what's the problem with being a nonprofit when it comes to cybersecurity? First is that you are focused on the mission that you are established to serve. So you have very, very mission and service focused. And oftentimes IT and cybersecurity just seem like a cost center. Maybe you say to yourself, why can't IT just work, right? I would like the same thing, actually. But the bottom line is that the way that our organizations operate, without that IT infrastructure and without protecting those systems, you're not going to be able to fulfill your mission. So that's why this has to come to the forefront and has to be part of the strategy of your organization. So let's dive a little bit into talking about what these threats are. So for the first time in history, cybercrime is the most prevalent type of crime. Identity theft is actually the most common type of consumer crime. It is you don't have to go anywhere, you don't have to do anything. You just sit at a keyboard, and far, far away, a malicious actor can take advantage of a victim. And that's one of the reasons why it's really important for you to take a step back and think about the data that you hold, the data that you are a data custodian for, and that you are required to protect it. So this is not just your operational data that perhaps if you lost it, then you would have, some issues being able to operate, like your financial data. But think about all of the records that you hold that don't actually belong to you, whether that's going to be your donors, which are individuals or organizations, or even your own employees and staff. You're a data custodian for that, and there are laws around the requirement to protect them. I like this visual because it really helps illustrate why we can't stop talking about cybercrime and why we need to keep it at the forefront. So you see all the way back in 2019, we had, this is, by the way, this is from the Internet Crime Complaint Center, the IC3. It's a government-run website that you can report losses as well as internet crimes to. This shows the last 5 years. And like, think about how sad this is. You know, in 2019, we had nearly 500,000 complaints and $3.5 billion in losses. And the interesting thing is that not only do we see that continuously go up, but look at the difference between the number of complaints and the loss. The losses are going up per incident. So every incident is getting more and more impactful from a cost perspective. And PS, these are just the ones that were reported to the IC3, not the ones that were not reported. So if it's so common, that's a lot of crime. Why don't we hear more about it? One is because it's very embarrassing to admit that you've been hacked. Nobody wants to talk about that. And then, you know, maybe somebody told you that you should be doing a certain thing and you decided not to do it, a certain security practice, and you failed to do it when you were in that situation. The last thing you want to do is say, man, I should have listened to them. You usually are trying to figure out, you know, like you're angry, you feel violated. And that's the last thing that you're going to be thinking about is, you know, what did they tell me to do that maybe I didn't? And this last one's really scary. A lot of people don't even know they've been hacked until they suffer a loss. So a malicious actor can actively be inside of your computers, your email system, or, you know, your CRM or giving platform, and you wouldn't even know unless they actually took action and did something to trigger an alert or maybe some strange activity. So they could actually be in there and you not even know.
Yeah, I relate to this.
You said you can relate to this?
Yes, I can. I got hacked in one of my favorite games, and they stole one of my favorite things in
Oh,
that game. They also
I'm,
stole my brother's favorite thing.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it is incredibly common. So if we go back in history, how do we get here? So remember that cybercrime is a business, right? So back in the day, when we think about criminals, you know, you used to have to you put on a mask, jump on a moving train, have a gun, hold up a car, everybody put your money in here, or go rob a bank. I mean, crime used to be really super messy, but by digitizing all of these systems, we digitize our banks, we have credit cards, and we access everything through a screen. That gave criminals a much cleaner platform from which to operate and do crimes. So, and if I was a criminal, I would do the same thing, right? I don't want to, you know, go outside and try to mug people. I don't want to try to rob a bank. It would be way easier just to sit behind a screen and collect money and watch your bank account fill up. So they're smart, right? But what does motivate them? Obviously, it's going to be money. Like you know, this is just an example of like something as simple as an iTunes account or a credit card. Those details, they make money on the dark web. And one successful ransomware attack, in other words, like the crypto, is an easy $600. That's just for an individual's computer. And you think, you know, maybe that's not like somebody encrypts my computer. I don't care, until you realize that on that computer were maybe some pictures of your granddaughter. In one case, somebody called, they had encrypted a computer and they were the only pictures they had left of their deceased daughter were on that computer. Trust me, when that woman would have paid just about anything to get that back. For a business, it's an easy 2,500 to 50,000 or more per incident for cryptoware. And even an amateur can expect to make about 80 grand a month. Why do we have morals and ethics, guys? That sounds like a pretty easy payday. Too bad, right? So they're constantly, hackers are constantly looking for any kind of data they can find on individuals to be able to open credit cards, take out loans in your name, steal your tax refund. A lot of us are going to be hearing about this very frequently over the next couple of months as people are doing that. That will be in the news. And they also use that personal data to create what we call very highly targeted phishing scams to be able to access your information, your bank account, your email, your computer. These highly targeted phishing scams, they don't even really need to, to hack into anything to get your information. We provide it for them on the web. They use what's called open source intelligence, OSINT, and then just scrape information about all of us. Think about your LinkedIn, your social media, and then all of those sites that have information about you, your home address, your date of birth. And so it's really easy for them to be able to create these scams, to be able to trick people into giving them information or access. Another strategy that they use is extortion, blackmail. So they hit a site. Some of you might have remembered the Ashley Madison hack. This happened several years ago. And the reason why the malicious actors wanted to hack this site was for the user list. Because Ashley Madison, remember, is this, like married couples trying to hook up with other married couples. It's supposed to be a discreet thing, but nobody wants that to be public. And when they got that user list, who did they find on there? They found generals on there. They found representatives and legislators on there. They found influencers on there. And then they leveraged that information to extort people for money. So what's enabling them? We actually make it really easy for them to be able to hack into us. And we're going to talk about ways to be able to stop them. But if you are trying to start up a business being a hacker, it's actually pretty easy. There are hundreds of websites out there that have prepackaged exploit kits. You don't have to have a whole bunch of technical knowledge. You can just buy the kit, follow the SOP, start running it. And then, it just automates going out and encrypting or ransomwaring things, and then the whole process, to collect Bitcoin. Everything is completely automated. We also have this new Internet of Things where everything is connected. It makes it very easy to gain access. Think about the Alexa in your home. Think about your Nest. Like, all of those devices are very insecure. And they're very easy to hack, to not only, do certain malicious things too, but then also to leverage into other devices that are also on your network. And frankly, the FBI is really overwhelmed with cases. So unless you have a really huge loss to your business, or what you experience is actually related to a case that they're currently working, you're probably not going to get a lot of help from the FBI. And then there's the dark web, a place that none of us can go to or should go to, where malicious actors work anonymously.
Leia, I want to ask you, so should we turn off our Alexas, or you've just brought that up, but because we have one here in the building, it just caused me concern.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. If you're thinking about an office network, then at your business, we have we refer to as virtual network setup, or VLANs. And then we have certain devices that are allowed to be on certain VLANs. And when they're on that, for instance, those Internet of Things devices, whether it would be an Alexa or whether it would be a security system, your TVs, we would put all of those on a Internet of Things or IoT LAN, and it would only be able to get to the internet. And that would isolate them from being able to, a malicious actor from being able to move laterally across your network. That is definitely a best practice. Now, when we talk about our homes, that's a different story. However, we should definitely be thinking about the exposure when we allow our people to be able to work from home. Because even if we put somebody on a VPN, their local network there could still, compromise that computer, whether it is their television, their Nest, their Alexa, or whether it's their kid's laptop. I mean, those things are riddled with viruses because kids get around the security the schools put them on all the time. So having things like remote work standards, which we're going to talk about a little later here, are also really important. But those are good questions. Business email compromise is still one of the leading methods of attack, which is obviously when a malicious actor gains access to your email and is looking for lots of information, scraping financial data, trying to figure out what kind of other organizations you have a trust relationship with, so they can try to leverage that trust relationship to get them to do something, send a check, send a wire, or give you banking information. Then we have this tech and customer support and government impersonation strategies, right? Where you actually receive a phone call and say, hi, I'm, Susie from QuickBooks Online, and I got this alert that something's going on in your QuickBooks. We need to look at that together. Please, I'm going to send you a link. Please click on this link and we'll look at it together. And then they have access to your computer. This happens. I've heard stories from people that I know of falling for that. And the scary thing about that is that many of those outfits really act like legitimate businesses. So obviously they're not in our country, they're in foreign countries. They hire people to do that, to actually try to hack into the computers. They have compensation plans, PTO, onboarding programs, but the way they generate revenue is by stealing it from you. Also, like the biggest issue is us. Like, we are enabling them because we don't have enough knowledge and we are not vigilant enough. I did mention the dark web very briefly. The dark web is a completely separate, hidden part of the World Wide Web. So you can't open up Chrome or Edge and go there. You have to have a special kind of browser, and you can't use letters. You have to use IP address as a string of numbers in order to get around there. So it's not like you can't Google something and try to find that on the dark web. But the kinds of things that are sold there are, well, just about anything. You can buy drugs, guns, people, anything that's illegal. It's actually larger than the regular web that we're used to, and it's extensive. Criminals use it because they can operate anonymously there. They cannot be tracked. And you say, why would we even do this in the first place? Well, actually, the dark web was created by our government. Yes, it was, because they wanted a secure and covert way of being able to communicate and send information back and forth. So it started as a really good idea, but then as criminals recognize this is actually a good idea for us too, they kind of took it over, and a lot of the dark web is used for nefarious purposes. It is still used by our government in order to operate anonymously and covertly. And it's also used by people and organizations in countries that are very oppressed and have filtered internet to be able to communicate with the outside world. So there are some good things that are happening there. It's just not most of what's happening there. So I mentioned we did a documentary on cybercrime, the dark web uncovered, and you can go ahead and you can check that out on Amazon Movie. I think it's like, I don't know, maybe $3 to rent it if you're interested in diving a little bit deeper into the dark web. All right. So what we found is the biggest danger is actually complacency. We cannot underestimate the importance of addressing and protecting yourself from these threats. One of my favorite quotes is by Andrew Grove. He's the former CEO of Intel. He says, "Success breeds complacency. Complacency breeds failure. Only the paranoid survive." Now, when Andrew Grove was when he said this quote, he was actually talking about the success that Intel was having at the time, because they were, I mean, if you remember, like Intel processors were everywhere, and their stock went way up, and they were growing fast, and everybody kind of felt like they were having a heyday. And he's like, "Whoa, stop! We can't get complacent. We have to make sure that we are paranoid about what it is we are doing, and this is perfect to take this thought and apply it to cybersecurity." Because our people, we're the ones that make mistakes. Obviously, remember deleting a file by accident, clicking on a phishing email, incorrectly logging into a compromised Facebook page. We have people that use free and unsecured apps and email to share confidential and personal information. Do you have standards for how people are, or what they're allowed to access and use inside of your organizations? In fact, there have been times where we've done a cybersecurity webinar for one of our clients, and I had somebody say, "Oh, well, I've been using this productivity tool because it's actually helping me at work. Am I allowed to do that?" And I'm like, I can't answer that for you. But the organization didn't even realize that there was business information in all these different places, and that people were using different apps because they hadn't established a standard or told them what to do or not to do. And then we just freely share our personal informations all over the place. Like, what are you putting on Facebook? What are you putting on Instagram, on LinkedIn? Are you comfortable with the fact that that is available essentially to the public? And even if you say, "Well, I only share it with my friends," your friends' accounts can get hacked too. So anybody can access that information. Do you post that you're on vacation? That means you're not home. And that's a great time to go break into your house. We also don't consider all of the data that corporations hold about us and what their own security practices are. Our banks, our food services, all those shopping sites online, Amazon, the list is endless. So we already talked about ransomware. Now, think about this number. 350,000 new malware threats are being released per day. And can you imagine? You say, "Well, I have antivirus. Why isn't that enough?" Well, if we have this many new kinds of new iterations of ransomware, it's really hard. Every time that we have a step forward in security, those malicious actors are meeting us there. And so it's this whole cat and mouse of we do better, they do better. We do better, they do better. And I thought this was really cute. Once a writer once asked a literary agent, "What kind of writing pays the most?" Her answer is simple: ransom notes. I would agree. Now they are using all sorts of nefarious techniques to try to extort people for money. Imagine that you find out that somehow, out of the blue, there's child pornography on your smartphone, and you know that you didn't put it there because you would never in 100 million years do that. But now it's there. And then you get contacted by a malicious actor. You can't remove it. You're unable to remove it. And they say that unless you pay them money, they're going to turn you into the police. Puts us in a very bad situation, but that's actually happening. There are so many social engineering scams that we can't even begin to go through. Fake social media accounts that ask you to send money. And sometimes that'll even be like influencers that you follow. And I don't know how many times those of you have like been on a YouTube video or something like that, and then you see in the comments the creator saying, you know, alert, I will never contact you and ask you for money. You've probably seen that before. It's because this happens all the time. They're also trying to get people to send money for crypto scams, because crypto is really hot right now. Sextortion scams, catfishing, email impersonation, and they're leveraging AI now to get better at all of those attacks. This one is probably, I'm going to tell you a quick story. This is not related to your business, but if you have any young people, you're going to want to tell them this story. So I was contacted by the parents of a teenager who said that, I'm sorry, it was actually the friend of the parents. And they said, you know, my friends, they have a 16-year-old boy, and he was talking with somebody on Snapchat, and they identified themselves as, you know, this girl who was cute. They were, you know, he's flirting back and forth. And she asked him to send some pictures of his private parts. And so he wanted to make this girl like her, so he did it. And then this girl revealed themselves as actually being a malicious actor, and told him that he needed to send $600 immediately, or he was going to release those pictures to all of his friends on Snapchat and basically out him. So when I got this call, I was like, okay, so what you need to do is you need to report that account to the platform immediately. Like, you know, just, you know, keep talking to this person enough so that they don't do that, take that action. Report them immediately to the platform, because the platform will take action and will shut them down. But, you know, these parents, apparently they knew better, and they called the local police. The local police don't know what to do about this. Do not call the local police. God bless. And the local police, you know what they said? Just have him close his account. Somehow that was going to make it better. And it didn't. The malicious actor did release his private part pics to all of his friend group, and he had quite an embarrassing situation there. Please share that with any young people you know. It happens. It's embarrassing. You do not want to put yourself in that situation. Imagine having to tell your parents that happened. Please share the word. They're also using things we call phishing and smishing techniques. No, it's not a fancy way to ski, although it kind of sounds like it. Swish, swish. Smishing is going to be fake SMS messages or DMs engineered to click on links or take other actions. You guys have probably gotten the text message that the Turnpike Commission has a late fee on some toll that you needed to pay. That's fake. There's lots of them that come through like that. We UPS or USPS, we have a package for you. You know, like just be really, really careful about text messages you're not expecting. And vishing.
Like, what if do you block them as spam, or what do you do with those?
Yes, block them as spam. Yeah. So I have an Apple, like you saw when I waved my phone up here. And they have a when you slide and you can delete, you can say like delete and report as junk. That's what you want to do. Don't interact with it at all. Don't click on any links. And then there's vishing, which is actually when they call and they pose as legit services to get you to send them money, access your computer, give them your credit card information, etc. They do this. They actually leverage AI to make the voice sound like someone you know. All they need is a small voice sample. They've done this with parents and grandparents, you know, actually like using AI to make it sound like their grandchild's voice, calling and saying, I'm in jail, I'm here, I need your help. I need you to talk to this attorney, blah, blah, blah. And they send them thousands of dollars. This happens very frequently. And a quick story, how a local grocery chain almost lost $125,000 in a wire scam. So this was a very dear friend of mine who owns a local grocery chain, and he contacted me. This was several years ago. He contacted me because he got a call from his bank, and his bank said, "Hey, I'm just doing a verbal check because I just got an email from you that that I needed to send a wire to this new account in the amount of $125,000." And he sat up in his chair and he said, "What?" And thank God that you called me and didn't just do that. And then we did an investigation into his email account and did find out that it was compromised, that they went back through all of his emails to find out who his personal banker was. They got hit the letterhead for his organization. They got his signature, his digital signature, just from scanning back through the emails, put together a letter, sent it from that account to the banker. And if that banker didn't have, like, they have an internal control, an internal accounting control to make a call. If he hadn't done that, that's a wire. That's going to be really hard or impossible to get back. So how do we address this? We think about risk, and then we use strategy to address the risk. The first thing I'm going to suggest is that you think like a cybersecurity gal or guy. So I approach things with the 5 tenets of zero trust. I'm a zero trust girl. Never trust, always verify. It doesn't matter if it's an email, a phone call, a text message, a direct message. Never trust, always verify. Assume breach. Assume that you have been or will be breached. Assume a hostile environment. No, not in the workplace, in the digital space. Don't trust anything, even if it says secured. Scrutinize explicitly. Doubt it. Pick up the phone, like in that last story, pick up the phone and call someone directly. Look for signs that the communication is not authentic. If it doesn't feel right, just don't trust it. And utilize unified analytics essentially means corroborate the information you have and make sure you're asking for help. So let's talk about strategies to take away from here immediately and implement. The first one is multi-factor authentication. You need to put this every single place you possibly can, anywhere, any website that allows you to do MFA or 2FA, do it on your computers, on your Microsoft 365, on your Google, on your banking sites, anything having to do with payroll, your CRM, and especially on every single administrator account. So if you have an IT company that you work with or you have internal IT, demand that there is multi-factor authentication on all admin accounts. In fact, that's almost always on your cybersecurity questionnaire. So you want to be able to say yes to that when you're answering those questions. Vital protection number 2, up your password game. Okay. Passwords are still really important. Strong, long, and unique. And of these 3, long and unique are going to be what saves you. The number of characters. So I would recommend nothing short of 15 characters at a minimum, and then make them unique. And you're like, Leia, I can't do that. I have 500 bazillion passwords and there's no way I can keep track of them. I just save them in my browser. Don't do that. Use a password manager. They have tons of password managers out there that are very, very low cost. It is completely worth it because those platforms are secure. Your browser is not. And it also has a random password generator for you. So you don't have to come up with 500 different unique passwords. You can just tell it, I always want you to create a 15-character password for me. You press a button, it has a long string of characters, and then it also makes things easier for you to log into. Vital protection number 3, continuous cybersecurity awareness. Remember, only the paranoid survive, right? So
Diane,
this,
sorry, just to stop you a second. How often do you need to change your passwords?
so that's a good question. That is the we vary on that. So some people feel that it makes sense to change all of your passwords at least once a quarter or at least once a year. But what ends up happening, and this is there in the government's documentation in NIST, there is a special publication that they put out about passwords. They refer to them as secrets. So what ends up happening, it sounds good on paper, right? It sounds like a really great strategy. Change all your passwords every quarter and rotate them. The only problem with that is that we're humans, and humans don't actually in real life accommodate that strategy very well. And certainly not if you don't have a password manager, then you're going to create crappy passwords. You're going to have a base password, and then you're going to change it to like the month with an exclamation point or the season with an exclamation point. How do I know that? Because I've seen it a lot. And that's not going to be helpful, because malicious actors actually build that into their algorithms when they try to brute force attack and crack your password. They know you do that. So changing it frequently, if it's going to be like just changing a character, is not going to be helpful. So what would be ideal would be using a password manager and then having unique passwords that you change every 3 months. But that's really hard to do. So our recommendation is to have at least 20 character passwords, and every single one of them is unique, and stored in your password manager, so you don't have to remember them. And then only do password changes if you know you've been hacked. So you know that you've been hacked, and then just go ahead and change all your passwords everywhere because you don't know what they have access to. That is actually easier for humans to accommodate. Okay. Vital protection number 3, continuous cybersecurity awareness. Understanding the new methods that hackers are using. We talked about some of them today. Having phish testing. So like, emails sent from a legitimate source meant to trick your users to see how well are they actually identifying if this is a legitimate email or not. And then you have some data to be able to say, everyone's doing really good. Like they're really, really aware. Or, wow, okay, we've got people clicking on this and entering, their passwords, and we have to talk to them about this and maybe do some better training. And it will definitely keep things top of mind so we can stay in that paranoid state. And it is when we're complacent that we have the most dangerous position. So, that wasn't supposed to come up first. That's okay. Vital protection number 4 is security tools at your business, but then also considering those on your home network and computers. If you have people who are working from home, because those are uncontrolled networks, you have no control when somebody goes home, what's on it. So having standards for that. What kind of tools? We've got all sorts of letters for you. EDR, which is going to be endpoint detection and response, which is the fancy new term for antivirus. Web filtering, which these days we're calling DNS cleansing. A VPN or a SASE. Your VPN is a more of an old school technology, but it does make sure your internet is clean. SASE is a newer technology that is sort of like a VPN, but it's more sophisticated. Having a SIM, which is a tool that aggregates all these logs from your firewall, from your computers, from Microsoft 365 into one place. And then you have a SOC, a security operations center, that's actually looking at and analyzing those logs and looking for patterns to know as soon as you've been compromised, and then immediately take action to stop the actor. Encrypting data is really important. So establishing standards in your organization about what kind of data we need to protect, or because it's a standard for you, or it's a regulation. And then making sure that you're not sending that sensitive data in unencrypted email. And then encrypting your local machines. Like if you have a Windows machine, Windows BitLocker is free. All you have to do is turn it on, right? That's all you have to do. And then if something happens to your computer, all the information that's on there, nobody can access it. We already mentioned MFA. We also recommend an approach to endpoint protection for computers called zero trust endpoint protection. I believe we have that over at WCCF. Essentially, like, we whitelist specific software and say this is the only thing that can run, nothing else can run. It can be a real pain in the butt for users who are used to being able to just do whatever they want to, because if it's not an approved piece of software, it just cannot run. That also, though, makes sure that if a malicious actor is trying to install a remote access piece of software or ransomware, it also can't run. Obviously, you need a business class firewall. If you have an office that has good security services on it to filter the internet, you need some email security in place, that so only good mail's coming in there, and that it's filtering out attachments that might be infected, and then making sure you have a backup of your important data. Number 5, I'm going to get a little technical on you, but bear with me. I'm going to use the term configuration hardening, right? So let's think about computers, devices, firewalls, cloud platforms, services, allowed applications. Like, when a computer comes out of a box, it's pretty open. You can do lots of different things. In fact, when you log in to a computer, you're actually the administrator unless you create an account where you're not an administrator. So there is a fair amount of what we call hardening, security hardening, to allow the device to be as least functional as possible. So there's lots of things you can turn off, lock down. And then the more things you turn off and lock down, the more secure those devices are going to be. So you'd work with your IT on things like computers and firewalls, and also cloud platforms like Google or Microsoft 365. Talk to them too about what's allowed on your computers for applications, and uninstall everything else. But then also think about other platforms that you have where you might manage contacts or your financials. And they also have the capabilities to do things like turn on MFA, have restricted permissions for different users, so everyone's not an administrator. So think about that as well. And then you also want to include privacy notifications on all of those devices, so that people know that when they are logging into them, that the expectation is that they're going to comply with your privacy policies. All right, 6. Now we're getting into something that's dry, that nobody wants to talk about, but I personally love, and that is documentation of policies, plans, procedures, and standards. So policies are going to guide the organization and be the standard that you align everything to. And if you make a decision, like we're only going to allow these certain applications, and you get some pushback, you can say, well, we have an IT security policy, and that's what's in our policy. We've adopted this policy. So you're not like a bad guy, you're just following policy. And then you need some plans that you follow when things happen, like an incident response plan. What are you going to do when something gets encrypted or someone's email gets compromised? And then procedures to assure the same thing happens every time. That could be like if you have specific data that you handle, like for instance, we were talking before about accepting credit cards. We've got PCI compliance that we have to think about there. So you do need something written to say, this is what our organization is, how we handle credit card data. This is who's allowed to handle it, who's allowed to access it, where we're allowed to store it. That's actually regulation. You need to do that. So a quick checklist for documentation and standards. I hope you can see the ones that are bold. Didn't come through as well as I thought. This is my recommendation for the minimum number of documents that you should have. But the ones that I would say, if this is like, way too much for you, you do need some IT security policies for your organization. You need to determine what regulatory requirements do I have to follow, data privacy laws, PCI, maybe it's FTC safeguards, depending on the records that I'm holding. Maybe HIPAA, right? Like depending on what it is. So what regulations do I have to follow? Identify the data that that's related to, and what is our approved data flow? How are we going to protect that data? An incident response plan, because everyone's going to get, we already talked about it, right? Everyone's going to get compromised. It's not if, but when. To have some kind of risk assessment process. And when you're doing your annual renewal for your cybersecurity insurance, that might be a good time to do both of them at the same time, right? So instead of just doing it at different times, maybe you do it at the same time. Having a training and awareness plan to make sure that everyone is getting trained on cybersecurity and also on the appropriate ways of handling your data. An acceptable use policy for all end users, which is like, here are your rights and responsibilities using our systems. And this is going to happen if you don't do this. And then that remote access, remote user standards, like almost all of us these days allow some kind of remote work, even if it's, you're out at a fair, you got a table at a fair or a trade show. You sent somebody on a business trip. Like we're almost always in some capacity have some kind of remote work. What is the standard when somebody is traveling or remote for security? What internet are they allowed to connect to? How do they store their device if they're traveling? Making sure that's physically secure. Should they be concerned about things like shoulder surfing if they go out to Starbucks and they're working there and they've got sensitive data up on the screen? And then IT procedures. This one is huge. Demand that whoever you have in IT, whether it's an external company or somebody internal, it has actual checklists and SOPs for things like how to configure a new computer, how to set up a new user with the right permissions. What happens when a user leaves your organization so that you can make sure that the data is safe and secure. And then purging those things from the system, old users and old devices. Number 8, cybersecurity insurance. Insurance protects you from things that may happen and allows you to transfer risk. Biggest costs and incidents are going to be remediation and customer notifications and credit monitoring. So you want to make sure you have a good policy in place. And the last one, we just talked about it, risk assessment, at least yearly. Include your IT because you're a team together in assessing your cybersecurity risk. Want to reference your insurance requirements as part of risk assessment. Include protecting the data that you're a custodian for. And include discussing business operations in the case of an incident or a disaster. Like nobody thought we were going to have a pandemic. And we all had to scramble to figure out how we were going to still serve our customers in that kind of situation. So think about it ahead of time and have a plan. And then consider keeping a risk register to keep track of those risks and how you're going to address them. Because it, went off about passwords, we actually have a free report, The Simple Guide to Hacker-Proof Passwords. If you go to our website /hackerproof, you can download a free copy. It's actually an excerpt from one of the chapters in my book. So it's my pleasure to be able to give you that information to help you have strong passwords. So that I know that was a lot of information. But we've come to the end of what I'm going to download to you today. Just any questions or clarification on any of those things that we talked about.
Well, Leia, I just want to say, first of all, and this is full disclosure, that Compliancy IT does this cybersecurity for the foundation. And we're very pleased with it, and they're very responsive and thought through a lot of things. So we appreciate it. But right now I'm saying, why am I still on the internet? I don't know, but but anyway, we did have a question. You work with businesses and individuals for your services.
So we don't work with individuals. I usually refer out to some of my colleagues to work one-on-one with people individually. We do work with businesses. There obviously are some qualifiers. You can imagine that that we don't work with people that are like, I don't need all of this. I just want you to fix my computers. So that's too much of a risk for our organization with the way that we operate. Is actually when Joanne had asked me if I'd be willing to do this, to take the time to talk to you all. I told her, but because of their commitment and investment in cybersecurity and making sure they were secure, that it would be my pleasure to donate my time and knowledge for everybody else. There's definitely a qualifier there. If I just can't work with an organization that is not willing to be able to make the changes. It's a cultural change. It's not just a monetary change, guys. It's a cultural change in your organization too.
Well, thank you, Leia, again, for your volunteer spirit and your expertise in this area. And the other thing we talked about it, and just what you said, is that every organization needs to think of cybersecurity technology as annual expenses, not you don't put this off. This is part of like the electric bill. This is the water bill. This is the cybersecurity bill or technology bill. That you're keeping up with all the changes that are necessary.
Yes, 100%.
Do we have any other questions at this time? Well, I just have a few announcements, and people can be writing in the chat if they would like. And I wanted to thank Leia presentation on this, and we just appreciate it very much. And want you to be aware of the next one, which is in our session of nonprofit leadership and engagement, which will be Tuesday, May 20th at noon with the Washington County Community Foundation Chair, Michael Anderson, on the statement of financial expense. This is no joke. The WCCF Gives website is open for applications today. Go to WCCFgives.org and you can start registering your organization. It is a little bit different this year, and some announcements about that will be sent out to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And do we have any other questions? Sarah, were you going to ask something? Or just maybe Sarah left. Okay.
Oh no, I'm still here, Joanne. I don't have any specific questions. I'm just intrigued by, of course, the level of detail that was offered here. And obviously there's a lot for us to continue to learn from. So thank you so much for your presentation.
It's my pleasure. I wanted to just say one thing really quick. If I go back to this list of documentation that you need. Wait, where'd I put it? I think I went right past it. Hang on. All right, so I gave you an overwhelming list of documentation you need. And what ends up happening when people see this is like, okay, well, I'm gonna go download something free from the internet, or I'm gonna contact my friend and try to get their IT security policies and then just adopt them. I've seen this way too many times, especially when there is when there's a regulatory requirement like HIPAA, for instance. I'm going to strongly advise against just downloading a template and then trying to like just put your name on it, because they're don't do that. It's going to be incomplete, and it's not going to really be followable by your organization because you didn't write it, you just borrowed it from someone else. There's lots of things that end up being missing. I specialize myself in helping organizations to write these kinds of things for regulations. And I've seen on too many occasions just like downloading something. I actually have I have an acceptable use policy template that I would share with everybody here. That's pretty easy. And I can send it out to you, Joanne, that you can just share with everyone if you don't have one already. Because at least then it'll actually be like the kinds of things that you have in there will make you start thinking about what should be in your IT security policies. And then you can at least have some standards that you have end users sign, that they do or don't do, and protect your organization from that perspective. Sorry, I get excited.
No, and thank you. Thank you for sharing that list. And then if you can send the slides to me, we'll
Mhm.
attach it to when we post the webinar online. So yes, and then, people can go back and see it. And I am going to direct some more people to the site because I think we all really need to pay particular attention to this issue because it is rampant in the community.
Mhm.
You've heard Washington County was hacked and
Yeah.
the city of Washington, Trinity School District, and, paying ransoms for that. So we want to avoid that.
And that's your information. Like when they were hacked, they stole your information, they stole your kids' information, like they stole your information.
Right. Unfortunately, you're right. Yes.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you again so much. It was a pleasure to talk with you all today. And then I'll get that information over to you, Joanne, so you can just get it out to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Leia, for this presentation. It gave us a lot to think of. My heart started to beat a little bit faster during it at some point. So we're all have to be vigilant, always vigilant. So thanks all for attending, and we appreciate this very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.